The Midnight Sky, a post-apocalyptic drama, I guess you could say, follows the character of Augustine Lofthouse, played by George Clooney, who coincidentally is actually also the director of this film, which released on Netflix recently. It has the writers of Lily Brooks Dalton and Mark L. Smith. Mark L. Smith did the screenplay, but it's actually Lily Brooks Dalton book that this is based on called Good Morning Midnight. Now, this could be deemed a post-apocalyptic thriller, I guess you could say. It's somewhat sci-fi in some form or another, but I would say that this is mainly a drama, and also quite a deeper, almost existential film. We follow Augustine Lofthouse, a scientist who has a terminal disease of some form or another. He has to go through a filtration system, what looks to be dialysis anyway, and he's left on a planet Earth which is now essentially void of life, or at least the possibility of holding life anyway. As he's left here and all other inhabitants on Earth have either gone to ground or off planet, off world, he is left at a satellite station of his own choosing, and his main hope is to reach out to missions from the stars who have gone to K23 or other forms of satellite to basically warn them not to come back to planet Earth. That is the core story here at play. I was very, very impressed by George Clooney's direction in this. I actually didn't know he directed this film until I came to do this review, and I must say, as a chap that doesn't do a great deal of directing, if you look at his directorial credits, of late anyway, he directed some things in 2019, and then outside of that it was something done in 2017, a little bit in 2014, and then that's basically it. He hasn't done a great deal of directing as of late, but I will say his directing was fantastic. He also plays a really troubled man at the end of his life, a chap who is very clearly processing all that he has been, all that he could be, and the mistakes that he followed throughout his life. Again, he is left there on this satellite base station in the Arctic, and he finds or sees a little girl, Iris, and it's played throughout the movie as if this little girl is actually with him, but it becomes very, very apparent as the story progresses, as he comes to deal with his life issues, the decisions he's made, that this little girl is a figment of his imagination. And whether it's to do with his terminal disease that he has or not, who knows, but I would say that this points more towards the fact that he is clearly coming to terms with the choices that he made, and he's essentially reliving his memories. You know, he's a man at the end of the line, and we've all heard the saying, when death draws in, we can see our life flash before our eyes. This is basically what he is seeing, but he's also having the opportunity to connect with his daughter in a way that he didn't in his actual life. And yes, it may be a figment of his imagination, which we come to see at the very, very end of the film, although, like I said, it was painfully obvious as we were working into the film that this was what it was. Especially when she revealed her name, because it's played for that it might be a girl called Anna, but again, she reveals her name as Iris, and we know that that's actually his daughter, and again, it becomes very apparent. But I really liked this film. I think the colour palette was superb. A very, very interesting choice of colours that they utilised throughout. Again, when he's contacting the space station or the spaceship that's coming back home from K23, I think that was a nice touch. The aesthetic was great. It was a little bit overlong on those parts. George Clooney's character in this was very, very engaging. So when he began to connect with the spacecraft of the Ether coming back, when they focused on that, I did feel like they focused on that just a little bit too much. I really do feel like they focused on that just a tad, and it hindered the pace of the film, because up until that point, we were so invested in Augustine Lofthouse that these side characters, played by, Felicity Jones and things like that, it just became a bit almost needless melodrama. But I understand why they did that, because of course when we come back around to the very end and we learn that Felicity's character is in fact Iris, it does make sense and I can see why, but it didn't give the full emotional weight that it could have done if we'd explored through that with Augustine a little bit more. The musical choices were great. I really liked the musical choices. I think the aesthetic of the planet and the space station was very, very well done. But I think the absolute standouts here was absolutely just the fact that it was George Clooney directing as well as acting in it. I think he did a really, really good job. A very, very good job, in fact. And he pulls off this sort of stoicism with this character of Augustine, a man consumed by science and his desire to save the planet and Earth and give everyone a fighting chance, that he's basically lived out his days through everyone else. And he hasn't allowed himself to even have a life. And I really felt that. I really felt that was in there, and I could get a sense of that with the character. I think it was really, really well played by George Clooney. Although it was quite nuanced. I won't say that it was overplayed or incredibly obviously acted, but I think that actually helped the character evolve somewhat. So I really enjoyed this film. I can wholly recommend it. It is on Netflix. Highly recommend it. It's worth a watch. I believe this is one of those films that was supposed to be released in theatres but got bought up by a streaming service. I believe this could have done better, maybe, in theatres. Not obviously given current circumstances, but I do believe it could have done well in theatres. And it's a shame. I do have to compare it, though, to Ad Astra somewhat. But if you're looking at the two, this is a much better film, exploring much more wholesome themes, I would say, and explores them to a greater degree. I really enjoyed this film wholeheartedly, so I can highly recommend it. Good film, and I give this obviously a very positive review. So if you have watched it, please do let me know your thoughts down below. If you're new here, please do hit subscribe. But thank you so much for watching. I've been Mr. H. Take care.
Fortune.